in order to network and share experience and good ideas. Also, as Julie said, it's really unrealistic for a small group of volunteers that might get together around local problems necessarily to be able to provide the advice and support that then people from that area will be seeking. And so we're very happy, as well as having our general information, and you've got, hopefully all of you, our leaflet, which gives our helpline and our email and website for people to contact. That will always be the general port of call. If we know that something special is kicking off and people liaise with us about it, we might be able to set up special ways of making it a little bit quicker, a little bit easier to get through to the people who can provide support, and brief our caseworkers, brief our helpline workers on the local circumstances so they can be of more help to people. In terms, I mentioned our campaigning and trying to make a difference by using your experience, using the experience of those 4,000 people a year who've been contacting us for around 25 years as evidence to try and make a difference. These are just 3 of our top campaigning priorities at the moment. One is we need to make regulation real. There's a lot of good talk and spin that goes on about regulation in healthcare. But we did a piece of research, I don't know if you saw it written up in the media or on TV, radio 2 or 3 months ago, around things called patient safety alerts. This is where the NHS has gathered the information that things are going wrong repeatedly, not one-off mistakes, repeatedly, and causing serious harm or death in the NHS. There's a very good organisation called the National Patient Safety Agency that collects that. It does work on it, on how that can be prevented. And then it issues to all of the NHS a National Patient Safety Alert, which says you must do these things to prevent this kind of accident being repeated. So our research was what's happened with the 50-odd alerts that have been issued since the NPSA, the National Patient Safety Agency, started doing that. And to our horror, we found that many trusts simply hadn't implemented many of these alerts, some of them going back over 5 years. But whilst that was a shock, we weren't totally surprised. We knew that there would be some who hadn't implemented some alerts. We were surprised by the volume and the length of time they went back. But what really worried us is that the bodies who are supposed to be upholding these standards, who are meant to be checking that things are actually being done, had no system in place whatsoever. They could have found out more easily than we did that there were these gaps in taking the necessary safety steps, but weren't even bothered to look at the information. And to be honest with you, didn't even seem all that bothered when we presented it to them and it was in the media. Implementation of these patient safety alerts was the #1 core priority. So that's what we were all being told, that the system's improved to become safer because we've got this system. But it wasn't real. So when we say better regulation, it's about putting the talk into reality and making sure that when something like that comes to light, people jump on it before it becomes a Stafford, not after it's become a Stafford. I mean, there was one of those trusts identified, not a million miles away from here, Coventry, who hadn't implemented 35 out of the 53 safety alerts. They'd also come near the bottom of the Dr. Foster table on patient safety, mortality rates and other issues. You'll be hearing about that later on, about Dr. Foster. And yet, that isn't enough, apparently, to spark a serious investigation into what's going on there. What is? Do we have to wait till it gets to the point of Stafford? Care of the elderly. In all of these big scandals, and in very many, in fact the majority of the individual instances that we hear about, it's around care of the elderly, where the neglect, where the simple absence of knowledge that something has gone wrong. If an elderly person dies or gets ill, that is a common theme. So this is a very high priority. Of course, it's a very big theme in Stafford cases, and we need to focus our attention there. Why is it that so few incidents get reported about elderly people, when elderly people are the biggest cohort of patients in the whole of the NHS by far? There's something terribly, terribly wrong. And lastly, there's something that we're campaigning for that should be applicable to absolutely anybody in this country. It should be dear to the heart. Something called a duty of candour in healthcare. Now, I'm speaking to a fairly well-informed audience today, but I suspect there are even people amongst this room who will be shocked to hear that there is no statutory duty whatsoever to inform a patient or the family of a patient who's been affected, even killed, as a result of a medical accident, about the reasons for that having happened. There's been a debate for years, we've been calling for this, that it really needs to be a statutory